What's up, everybody? Legacy here with episode 10 of Wild on the Rift, and I have a very, very special guest. It is Bon from Riot SCA. Say what's up to everyone.
Hey everyone. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me here, Legacy.
Absolutely. So go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about your history and your current role at Riot.
So my name is Ban, and I am the esports project manager at Riot Southeast Asia esports team. So my primary job is to manage the WildOnTheRift esports in Southeast Asia. I'm in charge of launching the WildOnTheRift Southeast Asia Icon series that's been going on right now and throughout the year as well. Apart from that, I've been pretty involved in terms of helping with community tournaments, community tournament organizers. So that is basically what I'm doing right now. But in terms of how I got into Riot, I actually joined Riot back in December 2020, and that was due to after I left FunPlus Esports. When I was at FunPlus Esports, I was actually managing I was the product lead for the League of Legends Pacific Championship Series that year. And so I was pretty involved in League of Legends esports at least for a year, and saw pretty much how the Southeast Asia esports landscape is like, especially when it revolves around Riot Games. So, but I think my background has been pretty much based on mobile esports, mobile games. So a lot of people know me as someone who was very active in the grassroots movement for Clash Royale a couple of years ago, and that's how I got into esports actually. Before I even started the Clash Royale esports stuff, I think in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, I didn't even know what esports was, right? And that the only esports I knew back then was Street Fighter,
Yes.
and that's because I really like Daigo.
Yes.
And I used to play Street Fighter a lot. Yeah, so that's the only esports I knew back
The
then. Right?
legendary parry.
Yeah, the
Legendary parry.
legendary parry. Yeah, and like I didn't even know like there was such a big esports is such a big business in the world back then, right? And I myself, because my previous life before I joined the esports industry, I was actually a graphic designer. So,
nice.
And because as a graphic designer, our work ecosystem revolves around a lot around the Apple ecosystem. So we use Mac for our work, and that means that you don't get to play PC games when you have Mac at home, right? So I don't play a lot of PC games, and my game time is primarily on mobile phones, strictly on mobile phones and consoles at times, and that was probably why I was so. It was a natural transition for me from playing mobile games casually, and then to play to get into mobile esports through Clash Royale. So back when I was Clash Royale, I created the Royale Premier League.
Yep.
It is the probably at its peak was the biggest grassroots tournament in mobile esports at the time. So I remember per season we had about 400 teams participating in our community tournaments around the world. And we had like 3 to 4 thousand people playing on a weekly basis, which I was managing a team of mostly volunteers, mostly people who wants to be involved in that grassroots movement,
Mm-hmm.
of about like 15 to 20 people. About half of them are really active, and then the other half are those who will jump in whenever we need backups and stuff like that. So that's how I got into mobile esports, and it was really by chance that I created something that was I did not know the community wanted, um, and then uh, people. There was a time like I was like trying to figure out like what am I actually doing, right? And then I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mobile Mat.
Mm-hmm.
Mobile Matt, he and I went like we knew each other really long time ago. He at the time he was still in incubator, creating his product that was it was a education like gaming education product that was teaching people how to improve their games. And then both of us are really passionate about mobile games and mobile esports. And he was the one who really injected that passion into me, and he gave me a lot of guidance, and like that's how I was managed to like kind of wiggle my way into the professional side of esports, and and because of my heavy involvement in the Clash Royale community scene, I was able to get involved in some freelance gigs, contracted gigs for Clash Royale as well, for Clash Royale events. And eventually, um, there was an opportunity presented to me to actually uh, uproot everything that uproot everything that I have built in Singapore. So basically, my family. So my wife and I are were we were married in Singapore, but there was an opportunity to move to Taiwan, um, and literally do a career change, like just quit the advertising industry
Mm-hmm.
and then get into esports industry.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, and there were there was a lot of concern because like if you tell someone even today you're going into the esports industry or you're going into the gaming industry, I think there is still a lot of question marks, especially when you are talking to the older folks,
Mm-hmm.
like my parents or her parents, like telling them about um, me leaving my career behind as a designer, and venture to a different country, unfamiliar territory, and uh, uh, start from scratch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
just the thought itself was pretty scary. Um, but we we decided as a family that there was no better time for me to explore a new opportunity, and from then on, the decision was pretty easy to just move there and see if this actually works out, right? Because the good thing about me being a graphic designer back then, I don't think I was a really bad designer, to be honest. Uh, um, like if I fail to to achieve anything in esports, at the very least, I could fall back to become
Yeah.
a designer, right? And I could go freelance or whatever. And so, but so I went to Taiwan, and fortunately, I was able to do things that I was very familiar with, which was to work on Clash Royale League Asia. and the company that was contracted to operate that had me as a part of the team to actually manage that, and Clash Royale Asia back then was in its very first year.
In the infancy.
Yeah, it's very first year, and there was a lot of learnings, I would say, and I think being able or being given the confidence to learn on the job itself was very crucial to my career progression in the industry. Like I was given the opportunity to actually try things and do things my way, while also adhering to the industry standards. That I get to I think when I was in Taiwan, I argue a lot with my colleagues back then, but those are like not bad arguments, like good arguments, like why certain things are done this way is better, or why certain things done this way is not right. And most importantly is how we learn from each other. Like I came from a perspective that is very familiar with the game itself, right? And very familiar with uh, how we run the esports for Clash Royale as a community tournament. So the learning process was really helpful for the entire team, and I think someone somewhere saw those kind of value that I brought to the team, and decided to give me an opportunity to move to Shanghai and work on other projects. So that's how I got into FunPlus Esports. FunPlus Esports was based in Shanghai, and I was involved in like I mentioned, the Pacific Championship Series (PCS), but before that I was also involved in League of Legends C Tour, and some other projects that we were working on, like the Auto Chess. Back then it was the Auto Chess War.
Yeah, that's right. Auto chess. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
What was that? That was the Dota auto chess, right?
Yeah, so it was the original developer of the Dota 2 Auto Chess mod, and they came out and make their own game.
That's
and then they released it, and then they wanted to have like a world championship in the first year itself, right? So
Wow.
we helped them to run the regional qualifiers, and that was a pretty good learning experience as well. And I think those sort of learning actually helped me a lot today, because I will segue to WildRift later on, but so Auto Chess back then was a new game, and it was a new esports as well. And managing a new game and managing a new esports is very different when you compare it to when I was managing PCS, because PCS, League of Legends esports, is something that's been around for many years, and a lot of things have been set in place, a lot of procedures have been set in place, and then you just need to execute it. But when it comes to new game and new esports, you have to be the one that be driving it. You need to be the one who establishing like certain rules and establishing like certain protocols and stuff like that. So those type of things really help me, even till today, especially with the launch of WildRift Esports, and Southeast Asia is the first region to actually launch that. And yeah, and 2 years later, that's how I got into Riot, and that's how I got into managing the WildOnTheRift esports in Southeast Asia.
That's amazing. I mean, one of the things that you kind of highlight there is that you weren't afraid to take a risk, and I love that because you took a risk in creating the CRL, not CRL, the RPL,
RPL, yeah.
and that from something that you didn't know that was going to blow up, developed a community in there, and then you had to take another risk later down the line to move and kind of put all your money in one bag, or all eggs in one basket, as they say, on another adventure. And then later you had to go outside your box again, taking a risk to work on something that you never had in the Dota 2. And then now you get to go back to something familiar with Wild Rift, although it's different. So it's really cool to see how all of that comes together to put you to where you are today. And I'm pretty sure, as you were mentioning, like how you talk to or explain to, older generations about gaming and esports and landscape and the culture, it is hard to explain. Like, hey, this can be sustainable. But I'm sure
Yeah.
now the proof is there, and that's really an exciting thing to see. So the journey has been amazing, and that's one thing people don't realize, the work that goes on behind the
Yeah.
scenes to develop, build communities. Not all glitz and glamour. So that's amazing
Mm.
to hear and see, especially see now that we've established that the Icon series was how was that developed? Like, how did you brainstorm that together with your team? And what is the goal of the series in general? Because to me, it's beautiful. The summer part's coming out with multiple regions in the SCA, lots of teams, like a massive amount of teams. Like, did you expect to have that those kinds of numbers? Did you guys have analytics on like the player base? Like, walk us through that.
So uh, while Rift was announced a year plus ago during the 10 years anniversary, and I joined the team about slightly under a year later. And when I joined the team, there was a lot. There was some uh, 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 expectations that in place that we wanted to develop WildOnTheRift esports in Southeast Asia. And the reason why we were very uh, insistent on developing that is because we knew that the appetite is there, the appetite for WildOnTheRift esports, not just within Riot, but with our key stakeholders as well, like the pro players, the
Hmm.
pro teams, the sponsors, basically anyone who we talk to about WildOnTheRift. The first question they will ask is that, is there going to be WildOnTheRift esports? And for the longest time, we couldn't answer that because we were trying to work it out. But when the announcement came, I think around January this year, then we can finally talk to a lot of people and tell them that, hey, we are working on WildOnTheRift esports, right? And Icon series is this thing that we are working on. And we believe Icon series is the answer to those questions, those inquiries that we were getting. So essentially, Icon series is a year-long initiative that is uh, to create a WildOnTheRift esports ecosystem for our Southeast Asia players, right? And it's also the first in the world that actually have a full year of calendar that is filled with esports tournaments that actually has progression.
Hmm.
So I can't talk too much about the progression part, but we do have the Summer Super Cup that will cap the end of the summer season, and the Summer Super Cup is actually a tournament where we gather the best teams from each uh, uh, minor regions within Southeast Asia to compete in, right? But essentially, our Icon series is the one that we believe that you by having progression, uh, and for players to actually elevate themselves beyond their local tournament, their regional tournaments, to an international level. I think that is what we want to achieve with Icon Series. And Southeast Asia is a very interesting landscape because there are so many different minor regions within itself, and the regional rivalry is very strong based on the esports history
Mhm.
itself within the region, right? So we we want to build on that, and the way we design Icon Series is revolving around the regional rivalries uh, um, as one of the key, yeah. And uh, uh, I think another reason why we think WildOnTheRift esports is so important is that because League of Legends as an IP itself is highly recognized for its esports.
Mhm.
Right, every year we have world championships. Every year we have the MSI, except for last year, obviously. And esports is a huge part of League of Legends universe or ecosystem, right? So therefore, with Wild Rift um, so closely linked to the League of Legends ecosystem, it is inevitable that Wild Rift esports will be a huge part of the game as well, right? So essentially the goal of Icon Series is to set the foundation that we will be building on with our multi-years plan for Warrior esports in the region. So the way we are planning it is that the way we are planning Warrior esports, that we are not thinking about just this year, right?
Mhm.
We are thinking about like what's going to happen next year, what's going to happen in 2 years time, 3 years time, and 4 years time, right down the road. We are thinking about long term, and we communicate these visions to the organizations in the region, and we were being very transparent with them, right, in terms of like what we try to do, what we try to achieve, and set some expectation, and that is why we have a pretty amazing turnout
Mhm.
for the preseason,
Really
where
amazing
we
tournament.
invite, yeah,
And
we
some really
invited
big names.
yeah. So I think it really helped that like we have to come into uh, Southeast Asia. The way we want to build Warrior Esports is that we don't want to come in as like, hey, this is a League of Legends IP. You should be involved in this, right? I don't think anyone will believe that, right? Because we have to come in Southeast Asia and tell them like, hey, this is a new game. We are creating a esports for it, and we want you to be involved, right? And this is what we're gonna do for the next couple of years, right? That's how we approached it. Like we are not approaching it as say like, oh, this is League of Legends. You have to be part of it, right? We we don't believe in that. We believe that this is a completely new product, and we have to treat it with respect. We have to treat it uh, 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 like nobody knows about League of Legends.
Yeah, that's a good way to
Yeah.
look at it.
Mm.
So you said some big things there that I found really appealing. So one, I love the idea of the the regional part, each smaller region having rivalries, and that actually kind of goes back to your ideas of like grassroots. So going back and you already have these orgs or teams in each region that already have a rivalry. Then you're also providing them with sustainability, which is very important to orgs and teams or any tier one, tier two, or players as well. You're not thinking 1 year ahead. You're not just, hey, we're going to do this one tournament and we're out. To allow yourself to be that transparent to say, hey, we're thinking 2, 3, 4 years ahead is amazing for organizer or an org to hear because it's not like they have to shell out everything they have for one great roster for one run. And then what you do then is essentially for years to come, you build your own, I guess, like worlds rivalries where you have the big names each year after year trying to topple each other. And what smaller region is going to be that region that rises up. So that's really cool because I'm sure we all know that there's definitely going to be the powerhouses from each region that are expected to do, but you get that opportunity for these small regions or lesser known teams, I guess, to always get that opportunity to progress, as you were saying, each year. And then you get the miracle runs. You know, maybe the first 3 years, that one team was always on the brink. And then that fourth year, they finally make it and break through. And it's just like amazing storylines. And that's another thing you're doing. You're building natural storylines. Love that you guys had the vision for that. Really, really impressed. And shout out to you guys for coming out with that. And also the fact that you guys came about as like, this is a different game. It is not League of Legends. This is Wild. I think that was also smart by you guys. So as it's developed, and you guys had the preseason, and then you had the announcement. So you had the first announcement, the preseason, and then now summer's coming. How has the preseason met or exceeded your expectations so far? As far as production, viewership, the turnout. What are your thoughts on that?
Uh, I I mean, essentially, preseason is a tournament series where we try to experiment with how to engage with our players, because we are dealing with a very different set of audience, right, compared to League of Legends esports. That's why I emphasize on like how are we approaching the Wild Rift player base who are playing it on mobile, and how do they engage with the esports on primarily on mobile as well. So preseason will act as a period where we experiment with it. And some of the other things that we were doing was like, for example, we have vastly different format for some regions, right? You rarely see a similar format for each region. So take Malaysia and Thailand, for example. They were using double elimination with much shorter matches. They were using best of threes instead of best of fives for most of their games, except for the finals, right? While some region is they were playing single elimination, best of fives, and best of seven finals, right? And because of the dynamics of like how double elimination could could create the narratives, or like what you mentioned earlier, it's like people coming down from lower bracket, their lower bracket fairy tale runs, stuff like that, or redemption arc where they lose in the winners bracket finals, but then they come back to win the grand finals through the lower bracket, right? And how double elimination was able to create that. But then for single elimination, the stakes are higher, right? You cannot lose a single game. Every game is very important, right? And you lose the series, you're out. You don't have a double elimination lower bracket for you to rely on to make a comeback, right? So the stakes are higher for single elimination, and you can feel the tension of it when you are watching the games itself, right? You will see much closer games, especially when we see the Philippines and the Indonesia, where both regions uses the single elimination bracket. So and so far, I think we have managed to identify which of these format would serve our players best, but we won't stop. We won't stop experimenting. We won't stop discovering how we because our audience evolves over time. Like their watching habit or their preferences will change over time. But so far, I think preseason has served us very well in terms of discovering those things. And on top of that, like not just about the format, about the viewing experience, but we are figuring out how we are engaging with our players through social media, right? Like for Indonesia, we had the low cost cosplay competition,
That's
and
cool.
yeah, so we had the players. They were doing like really funny low cost cosplay. Like they were taking baskets to cover their face to pretend to be like Jax, and then they took the dustbin and then put it as his weapon. And it was really fun, and and for us, we were really happy to see how passionate our players are for the game. And for the esports as well, they came out, they watched the games, and supported teams, and it was great to see. All right. But in terms of expectation, I there really isn't any hard expectation, right? Because we are just starting out. So, like I said, this is pretty much the experimentation period. Uh, but the only expectation that we had was that we really wanted to serve our players and teams, because they are committed and they believe in WildOnTheRift esports. So, um, preseason, uh, we were trying to use preseason as a way to actually serve them, and help uh, help to provide them a platform, right? To build on, going into summer season, right? So, like the way I see it is that preseason, you have a preseason, we announce it, and then teams are getting into it. Players are getting signed up for the teams into their roster, and then you get to see who are actually competing in preseason. And then if you are a team who are watching the preseason, how would you prepare for it going into summer season? How would you compete against them? What type of players do you need to compete against them? Right? And this uh, uh, I believe it will create what do you call that, a puddle effect, right?
Hmm.
You just like spread those type of excitement as well as competitiveness uh, uh, to the wider community, and I truly believe that we've managed to achieve that through the preseason.
Summer season is almost here, and I'm really excited to watch this. I feel like the production value for pretty much all the regionals have been fantastic. So, talk about the summer season. How can you participate? Will there be opportunities for on-air talent? Because I've seen recently on social media a lot of in the SEA region coming out with content and people voicing like, "I'd love to be a part of this." Um, shed some light on that, if you will, for maybe people who don't know what the summer season is and how.
Summer season is the follow up to our preseason. There, there, there wasn't any progression from preseason. Summer season is entirely its own thing. We will start from scratch, and we want to invite all our players to participate in the summer season. Like if they are interested to compete against the best player in Wild Rift, I think they should find their way to compete in the summer season, and that is why we have made sure that all our regions to include open qualifiers as part of their format. All our regions will have open qualifier formats. Even for Vietnam, although we are inviting 6 teams directly, but we are still opening up 4 slots for teams to qualify into the group stage through uh, the open qualifiers. So opportunities for everyone. Um, and summer season will have progression. As I mentioned earlier, it will progress to the Summer Super Cup, where it will be a pan-regional tournament in Southeast Asia itself. And I think this creates a lot of excitement and opportunity for players to prove that they are not only the best in their own region, but also within Southeast Asia, to prove themselves that they are best in Southeast Asia. And being one of the first region to be launched, I think the uh, uh, we we want to um, be at the forefront when it comes to competitiveness. We want to be one of the strongest region. If there is an international event in the future, uh, we want to be at least the top three, right? So that's the sort of expectation that we have. But the opportunities is for everyone to prove themselves, and the open qualifiers will be their gateway to that. Um, and you also mentioned the on-air talents, right? And uh, the way we approach this is that although we are already working with a great group of talent across all the different minor regions, we are keeping our eyes open for up and coming talent to bring on, right? We we are very open minded about it. Like we want to make sure that well, any good talents that we discover or the community discover, we take a look at them and then say like, okay, uh, I think is great to be able to um, uh, inject some of those new perspective and new uh, 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 different energy that they can bring onto the table. So we are keeping a lookout. We have an initial group of talent that we are working with, and yeah, pretty excited to see up and coming talents as well.
And you kind of said something that hits me the hardest there. Excuse me, two things. One being the first region, as I am from NA,
Mm.
so I am the final region. And the fact that you want to have the best teams in there. Obviously, NA is always we won't talk about NA PC, but that's exciting because it gives not only content creators out there hope that maybe they will be discovered, get that opportunity, and that also knows that you guys are out there watching them, no matter how big or how small. The second thing
Yeah.
is that it presents itself with the things that you guys will learn from this will obviously have some kind of effect on how future regions esports landscapes will be built and run. So EU will have one, EU or NA, and the Americas. Like, obviously, you guys will be taking this as like, hey, this is a stepping stool and learning step. That if this worked out really well, like you're talking about for each different structures, whether one was double limb, single limb, probably take that in. Not saying that you better, but raise the bar each time from a quality production standpoint, from every standpoint across the board. So that's definitely exciting for a player, or not a player, but a person over here in NA. If like I'm excited about your region stuff, I can't like I'm super excited for mine when it comes 10 months later. You know what I'm saying? So that's great. That gives us as other regions also that stability to know, hey, they're working on stuff there. It's gonna start here, and it'll keep coming to us. So, any of the teams stand out for you right now after watching like some of the preseason events? And if you had to pick who you would put all your money on now, who would be the team and why?
I think this is a very difficult question because simply because there's so many of them, right? Like if you think about it, like we have what 48 teams participating in the preseason itself. 48 teams is not a small number, right? And so many of them have performed very very well. Um, uh, but don't this is on a personal level, right? Like and probably because it was very recent. I think the one that really stood out for me was Next Play Esports from the Philippines, and uh, it was really due to how clean their gameplay is. The gameplay was during the preseason, like for the fact that we had a patch less than a week before before the preseason tournament for Philippines, but they adapted. Not only they adapted so well, but they were able to maintain the quality of their gameplay. Right, the team fights were really good. Like all the players are on all the players on that team was on the same wavelength. And it was really nice to see, like like they just show the potential of how team fights can look really exciting and really clean in Wild Rift, and and at times when I was watching that, I had to remind myself that I'm watching Wild Rift and I'm not watching League of Legends esports, right? And that was why I thought they really stood out for me. Um, uh, uh, I think eventually we will see more of such gameplay, such clean gameplay from other teams in Wild Rift, because sometimes we have to remind ourselves that this game has only been out since like for SEA has only been out for like 6-7 months now, since October, uh, and some of the teams maybe they have just been playing together for like less than a month or less than 2 months, uh, and uh, and it's understandable if their gameplay is not as clean as someone like Nextplay, who's been uh, uh, playing in community tournaments a lot and winning community tournaments. Um, so yeah, so apart from that, I think it was really good to see Flash Wolves back on the reef
Yes,
in
yes,
Taiwan. Yeah,
really
so
cool.
I think it was it, the way they approach this is that um, I could see a lot of the energy that they're putting into Wild Rift, and the energy that the players are bringing to the Wild Rift esports resonates with me a lot. And one of their players that really stood out was Bruce, their mid laner, uh, and it's simply because he was someone who played in PCS last year, right? He played for Machi
Machi,
Esports
yeah.
last year, yeah, as the ADC, and PCS was, as I mentioned, it was a project that I worked on the year before, so I was very familiar with him, and I saw like how he played on that team. And Machi has a very interesting storyline as well. Last year when
Hmm?
they lost to PSG Talent in spring, and then they came back uh, and avenge their spring loss and to beat PSG Talent in summer to go to
Go
Worlds.
to Worlds.
Yeah, so it the storyline was really great, and then Bruce and the team went to Worlds 2020, and now that he is playing in Wild Rift, and it's amazing to see like the transition as a star AD carry player from Machi to play so well in Wild Rift for Flash Wolves. Um, so yeah, so for one of players that stood out for me was Bruce, but of course there are so many players that I can mention, right? And there are so many new players that actually excites me. Like, where I saw a player like Valdez from Evos, when I see players like Juschi from Next Play, and so many more of them, or Shang from GigFam, or Belby from Invade Esports. So many of them. I just can't simply like can't quite possibly mention all of them here. but definitely excited to see more new players to come through to from the open qualifiers of all our different regions, because I truly believe there are hidden talents out there who hasn't been discovered yet, and it's yeah, it's exciting times.
Very, very exciting. And so you mentioned something that I was kind of theory crafting when like the rumors of Wild Rift were coming, and it was you mentioned Bruce, pro player. P. One of the big things I was theory crafting is how many PC players will eventually come and play mobile Wild Rift. So it's interesting to see that there's already been a transition there, and they're excited about it. That's really, really cool to see, in my opinion. So, and like, I wonder if the other players that he was playing against, like, did they realize, like, hey, this guy was at Worlds last year. I'm playing against him. So already has like a crazy intimidation factor right there. So that's really, really cool, really exciting. And again, I'm jealous. I get to watch from afar. So eventually we'll get ours. Um, Last thing, just final thoughts. Anything you'd like to mention or talk about that you didn't get to? Yeah, go ahead and do it now.
um, I think I just wanted to say like Warif Esports or Warif in general, we are just starting, and I can't say too much about what we what we, what we are trying to do in short term and long term wise. But short term, obviously, Icon series is the one that we have right now, but it's not a 1 year off thing, right? And we are thinking about this in multi years train of thought. And I just wanted to reiterate that, like, we are just starting. We are building something that is completely new, and and that actually is that itself is very exciting, right? And we will be making a lot of progress throughout this period, like all the way until we are. I think we are still quite quite some distance away from where we want to be eventually. Uh, but I hope this will kind of shed some light, like this particular opportunity for me to actually share about Icon series Warrior Esports in Southeast Asia. We'll shed some light on how we are thinking about this, like how we are approaching this, and hopefully you will watch our summer season, which will be starting in a week's time. And before that, we also have one last preseason that will be happening tomorrow. Well, I'm not sure when this. Wait, I'm not sure when this will be going out, but yeah. Singapore is our last preseason region. Um, uh, even though even though, like, if you compare all the different minor regions within our regions, we treat Singapore the way we treat like all the smaller minor regions. We treat them the same way we treat the other regions, right? We want to provide equal opportunities for everyone, right? But of course, whenever we think about how we develop the esports for each region, um, we have to uh, we have to uh, 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 consider the landscape of each region, and and that is why some things are different, right? Like how Vietnam, we will have invited teams, and they will be playing in a studio, and then some other regions will be playing mostly online, right? And there are different factors that is affecting those decisions, right? So yeah, I think of course ICO series will provide those opportunity for us to figure things out, and I hope everyone will enjoy it because nothing excites me more than to see really good gameplay in the in or with esports itself. Other than that, I'm really thankful that you have invited me to share about what I'm really passionate about right now, and hopefully for years to come, and what we have been working on. So thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. It's definitely my pleasure and my honor to have you on the show. Shed some light on the icon. So make sure you guys go flood them with some follows. It's at ChisinRPL, so at ChisinRPL on Twitter. And make sure you guys watch this when it drops. I am Legacy for Wild on the Rift, so 10. Thanks for watching.